The sky over Raven Hills was choked with smoke and gunfire. Jagged bursts of earth erupted with each explosion, spraying dirt into the air like volcanic ash. A convoy had been making its way through the winding roads below the hills, an escort mission, simple on paper, but every soldier knew how fast simple could turn deadly. That day it did. A team of elite operators, hardened and silent, were moving with the convoy. Among them was a woman the rest barely noticed, a small, quiet figure in a dusty medic's uniform. Sophia Ramos, 28. Her long hair tied in a tight knot, trudged behind the squad, carrying a pack almost as heavy as she was. The red cross stitched onto her shoulder was the only thing that marked her presence. She wasn't supposed to be in the fight. Medics patched wounds, carried morphine, and whispered encouragement to the dying. They didn't carry rifles. They didn't plan assaults. At least, that's what everyone believed. When the ambush hit, it came like a hurricane, sudden, unrelenting, and perfectly timed. Gunfire exploded from the tree line. Bullets hissed through the air, cutting down men where they stood. Vehicles screeched to a halt. Shouts turned to screams. Sophia hit the dirt behind a boulder, clutching her medical kit with trembling hands. Around her, trained operators returned fire, their rifles barking in measured bursts. But even they were pinned. The enemy had the high ground, and the kill zone below was filling with bodies. A young operator named Robert saw her crawling toward a wounded man and shouted through the chaos, "Stay back. This isn't your place." She didn't answer. She just pressed her hands into a bleeding chest, eyes fixed and calm. Bullets smacked the rocks near her head, but she didn't flinch. Her breath stayed even. Her movements were surgical. Other operators noticed, too. This wasn't a rookie freezing under pressure. This was someone working like she'd done it before, too many times before. Michael, a veteran with years in the field, narrowed his eyes. He watched the way she moved from one casualty to the next, never once ducking when the gunfire peaked, always arriving just in time to save a man before he bled out. "Who is she?" he muttered. Sophia ignored the stares. She'd been underestimated her entire career. Too small, too quiet, too soft. Even in training, instructors questioned how she'd carry a wounded man. But she had endured. She had chosen medicine because she believed healing mattered more than hurting. Still, there were things about her she had never told anyone. Not because she was ashamed, but because she was done being a weapon. Until now. As the firefight dragged on, the enemy's pressure only grew. They weren't just attacking, they were hunting. The squad's communications were fried. No backup was coming. The leader, John, barked orders over the din, trying to rally his team. But even he was starting to look over his shoulder at the medic, who seemed strangely unshaken. Then it happened. A grenade exploded near Sophia's station, blowing her medical bag into the open. She dove forward without hesitation, grabbing it under fire. But something else caught her eye. An old rifle, mud-streaked and half-buried. She reached for it. The moment her fingers closed around the weapon, everything changed. The squad froze. Even under fire, they noticed. The medic, the quiet, fragile medic, had just armed herself. Robert scoffed. "You think picking it up means you can shoot it?" Sophia didn't respond. She raised the rifle, rested it on a rock, and peered through the sights. Smoke and wind distorted the field, but she didn't blink. One shot cracked through the storm. A man on the ridge dropped. Another. Then another. 3 enemies fell in under 10 seconds. Silence swept the squad. They weren't sure what they had just seen, luck, panic fire, but John knew better. That kind of precision didn't come from guessing. That came from training. Serious training. He turned to her, eyes sharp. "Who are you really, Ramos?" She said nothing. She just went back to patching a soldier's leg, like nothing had happened. But the battlefield had noticed, and nothing would ever be the same. The squad never forgot the moment Sophia pulled that trigger. 3 clean kills, one after another, each strike measured and final. The battlefield had swallowed them whole, but she had carved a hole in the storm, just wide enough for everyone to breathe. Whispers broke through the gunfire. "Did you see that?" Robert muttered, blinking hard as though the smoke was playing tricks on him. "That's not medic fire." Michael growled, reloading fast. "That's years of drilling. That's muscle memory. Sophia ignored them. She crouched low, her hands returning to blood-soaked bandages, tightening a tourniquet, whispering to the wounded man not to let go. Her eyes were calm, detached, but behind that calm was something sharper, something she had kept buried for years. The ambush hadn't ended. If anything, the enemy seemed to sense the shift. Their fire grew heavier, pinning the convoy from both flanks. Mortars thumped in the distance, ripping the earth into smoking craters. The smell of burnt metal mixed with blood hung thick in the air. Sophia moved between cover like water, never rushing but never slow. She seemed to know where the next burst of fire would land, gliding into safety a second before bullets chewed through the dirt where she had been. John noticed it too. Commanders had instincts for talent, or for danger, and this medic was far too composed, far too precise, for what her record said she was. He caught her eyes for a moment as she rose from one casualty and ducked to another. There was history there, heavy history. He wanted answers, but the battlefield gave none. Another wounded operator screamed as shrapnel tore into his arm. Sophia slid beside him, blade out, cutting away fabric with the speed of a surgeon. Her hands moved with cold accuracy. Clamp, clean bind. The operator hissed through his teeth, but relaxed under her calm voice. "You've done this before," he whispered hoarsely. Sophia met his gaze briefly. "Med school," she said, but the man's face twisted in disbelief. He had seen medics work. He had watched them panic in chaos, even the seasoned ones. This wasn't med school training. This was battlefield surgery, the kind performed under fire, the kind that came from scars, not textbooks. Michael, crouched nearby, caught it too. He shouted above the gunfire, "Ma'am, where'd you learn trauma care like that?" "School," she repeated, her voice clipped. Michael stared at her hands. They never trembled. They never missed a beat. That wasn't school. That was something darker, something older. The enemy's assault surged again. A machine gun rattled from the ridge, tearing through the convoy's flank. 2 men dropped instantly. The team scrambled to cover, but the gunner had them pinned. Sophia didn't hesitate. She scooped the rifle again, slid behind the shattered axle of a transport, and exhaled. One shot. The gunner's head snapped back, body crumpling. Silence echoed down the ridge, broken only by the hiss of smoke. The squad froze again. Robert swallowed hard. That was 400 meters. John's voice cut through the disbelief. No one lands that shot without training. Not like that. Not under pressure. Sophia chambered another round, her eyes fixed on the treeline. She didn't look at them. She didn't answer. She simply adjusted her breathing, scanning for the next threat. But Michael wasn't letting it go. He edged closer, voice low. "That grouping, the stance, that's not just competence. That's mastery. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Sophia kept working, bandaging another soldier without missing rhythm. "Basic training," she said flatly. Michael laughed bitterly. "That's no basic. That's special forces marksmanship." For the first time, her jaw tightened. A flicker of something crossed her eyes, regret maybe, but she didn't speak. The next wave of enemies surged, firing wildly, trying to break through the convoy. Sophia slid into cover, raised the rifle again, and dropped them one by one. Her shots weren't random. Each bullet had purpose. A machine gunner silenced. A hidden sniper on the ridge. A squad leader cut down mid-shout. Every shot opened breathing room for her team. Every shot was surgical. Robert watched her, disbelief twisting into awe. She's not flinching. Not even ducking. "Because she's done this before," Michael said grimly. "Plenty of times." John finally barked, "Ramos. Enough. Who are you really?" Sophia didn't look back. She kept her rifle steady, sight sweeping across the battlefield, every movement deliberate. "Sometimes," she said softly, "files don't tell the whole story." Then she fired again, cutting down another threat before it could even aim. The squad exchanged uneasy glances. A medic wasn't supposed to lead the fight. A medic wasn't supposed to predict enemy movements or spot snipers invisible to trained eyes. But Sophia was no ordinary medic. With each shot, each command shouted between bandages and gunfire, the truth pressed closer. She wasn't just surviving the ambush, she was commanding it, directing fire, choosing positions, rationing ammo, all while keeping wounded men alive. And the squad realized something terrifying. This woman, the one they had dismissed as dead weight, wasn't just saving them. She was controlling the battlefield. The Raven Hills burned with fire and steel. The convoy was reduced to twisted wrecks, and the squad clung to whatever cover remained. Smoke rolled through the valley like a shroud, broken only by the stutter of rifles and the hollow thump of mortars echoing in the distance. Through that storm moved Sofia Ramos, the medic who was no longer just a medic. She stitched wounds with one hand and commanded the firefight with the other. Each movement told a story, a hidden story the squad was only now beginning to see. "Reload! Shift fire left!" she called sharply to Robert, her tone carrying authority no one dared question. He obeyed without thinking, realizing too late that he had just taken orders from the woman he'd mocked hours earlier. Michael crouched low beside John, shaking his head in disbelief. "She's controlling this whole fight, sir. Every move. Every shot." John didn't argue. He'd seen it too. Her awareness wasn't humanly ordinary. She didn't just react, she anticipated. She knew where enemies would appear before they even emerged, placing herself in angles that offered perfect shots and safe crossings. The truth pressed down heavier than the smoke. Sofia fired again. A sniper hidden behind a ridge collapsed, silenced before he could finish drawing a bead on John's helmet. She didn't celebrate. She didn't even pause. She simply shifted to another wounded man, her hands red to the wrist, murmuring reassurance as she worked. "Who are you?" John muttered under his breath. The others had been wondering the same. The whispers grew, thick with suspicion. This wasn't luck. This wasn't instinct. This was training. Elite training. A mortar crashed nearby, hurling shrapnel across their cover. One shard grazed Sofia's temple, streaking her face with blood. She wiped it away with the back of her hand, unbothered. Michael froze at the sight. "I've seen that before," he whispered. "Back in Fallujah, there was a sniper who never flinched. Not once. Even under artillery. They called her the Ghost." Robert looked at him sharply. "The Ghost? That's just rumor." But as Sofia steadied her rifle again, her breathing slow, her trigger finger precise, Robert wasn't so sure. The squad didn't have long to debate. Another wave of enemies descended the ridge. Their boots thundered against the dirt, shouting in a language the squad couldn't understand, but the intent was clear. Finish the convoy. Kill every survivor. Sofia rose to one knee, her rifle snug against her shoulder. Her shots rang out like drumbeats. Each one was decisive, merciless, and perfectly placed. The attackers faltered, their momentum broken by an unseen hand. Robert stared in awe. "She's running the whole defense. Without her, we'd be dead already." But awe gave way to fear, because the question no one wanted to ask still hung heavy. Why had she hidden it? The lull between waves gave John his chance. He crawled toward her position, crouching low beside her as she reloaded with mechanical precision. "Marquez," he hissed, still calling her by the name in the file. "Your record says Medic Corps. That's it. But what I see, that's sniper doctrine. That's Special Forces playbook." She didn't answer. She slid a fresh magazine home and checked the wind against the smoke. "Don't play me," John pressed. "These men deserve the truth. I deserve the truth." Sofia's jaw flexed, but her eyes stayed fixed on the horizon. "Sometimes," she said finally, "truth isn't a gift. It's a weight." "Then drop it on me," John growled. But the battlefield made the choice for her. The enemy regrouped for their fiercest push yet. Heavy machine guns opened from the tree line, cutting lines of fire across the road. More men fell screaming. The squad was breaking. Sofia rose from cover with the calm of someone who had been here too many times before. She barked crisp orders. "Suppress right flank. Shift left. Hold your fire until I mark." The squad obeyed without hesitation. Not because she asked, but because she sounded like a commander. Then she revealed it. As she knelt behind cover, she rolled up her sleeve. Ink glistened against her skin, smeared with blood and dirt. A faded emblem, the insignia of a unit long buried in classified files. Michael's eyes widened. His voice cracked with disbelief. No, that's the Kraken. Robert swallowed, his mouth suddenly dry. That unit doesn't exist anymore. They were disbanded, erased. But John knew the stories, the impossible shots, the missions no one should have survived, the record nobody had ever broken, the 3,200-meter kill. He stared at Sophia as if seeing her for the first time. That was you. Her silence was confirmation enough. The squad froze in shock. The medic they had ridiculed was one of the deadliest snipers ever to live. The ghost of Kandahar. The woman whose legend haunted battlefields even after her disappearance. Sophia's eyes never left her scope. Her voice was steady, almost tired. That was another lifetime. One I buried. Why hide it? John demanded. Her answer was quiet, carried only between the cracks of gunfire. Because saving lives matters more than ending them. I walked away, so I wouldn't have to be this again. But now she was. The enemy surged once more, their numbers overwhelming. The squad tightened their grips, waiting for the storm. And in that storm stood Sophia, her past no longer hidden, her mask torn away. The ghost had returned, not for glory, not for vengeance, but because her team needed her, and the battlefield would never forget her name again. The revelation spread across the squad, like a lightning strike. The insignia on Sophia's wrist was more than a tattoo. It was a confession carved in ink, proof that every rumor whispered in mess halls and barracks carried a trace of truth. She was Kraken, the ghost unit, the one even veterans spoke of with a mix of awe and dread. The men had doubted her, dismissed her as a burden. Now, in the smoke-choked valley of Raven Hills, they realized the quiet medic among them had once been one of the most lethal assets their world had ever known. But the battlefield wasn't pausing for them to process it. Mortars crashed. Gunfire raked their positions. The enemy, emboldened by numbers and fury, poured down the slopes. John forced himself to act, though his eyes kept drifting to her. Positions. Hold the line, he shouted. But his words carried less weight now. The squad's eyes weren't on him anymore. They were on her. And Sophia didn't disappoint. She slid into cover with fluid precision, her rifle rising as naturally as if it had always belonged in her hands. She exhaled, squeezed, and a machine gunner collapsed. Without pausing, she shifted, striking down a mortar crew before their next shell could land. Every shot had purpose, every kill surgical. Mark your fire lanes, she ordered sharply, voice clear over the chaos. Don't waste rounds. Focus right, stagger shots. The squad obeyed without hesitation. Robert glanced at Michael, then muttered, "She's running this fight." Michael's jaw tightened, and thank God for it. The rhythm of battle changed under her command. No longer chaotic, the squad's defense tightened like a net. Every position covered, every angle exploited. Sophia balanced the fight with ruthless efficiency, one moment bandaging a wound, the next orchestrating the squad, like a conductor with a rifle for a baton. When she spoke, it wasn't suggestion. It was law. Robert, move 5 meters left. You'll get better sight. John, rotate your men. The flank is thin. Michael, ration the last of your ammo. Make every round count. Her directions were flawless. Men who'd scoffed at her hours before now clung to her words as if they were oxygen. The enemy pressed harder, sensing the fight slipping away. Heavy weapons opened from the tree line, rounds smashing vehicles into fireballs. Dirt rained from the sky as mortars pounded closer. The ground trembled, and still she fought. Sophia spotted the enemy's coordination, a sniper hidden high, directing fire through coded signals. Without breaking rhythm, she steadied her breath and fired. The hidden sniper fell, his signal silenced. The entire assault faltered, their coordination shattered. She just broke their chain, Michael said in disbelief. She saw it before I even did. John swallowed hard. She's not just fighting. She's commanding this entire defense. For Sophia, it wasn't choice. It was instinct. She hadn't wanted to lead, hadn't wanted to be the weapon again. But the squad was bleeding, cornered, outnumbered. She couldn't let them fall. Not again. Her eyes flicked from casualty to casualty, memory clawing at her. Faces from another time, another mission. Brothers and sisters she couldn't save. Kraken had died that day. She had buried it. Yet here she was, dragging it out of the grave, because these men still had a chance. She fired again, whispering to herself as much as to them. Not this time. The squad felt a shift. What had begun as survival now became counterattack. Under her unseen command, their shots were sharper, their position stronger. Slowly, impossibly, they pushed back. One SEAL, bleeding badly, whispered to another, "She's more than a medic. She's the reason we're alive." The other nodded, never taking his eyes off her. "We judged her wrong. We all did." But the enemy wasn't finished. A fresh wave of fighters charged down the slope, heavier than before. Rockets hissed through the air, slamming into the dirt with bone-rattling force. The valley erupted again in chaos. Sophia crouched, eyes narrowed. She scanned quickly, then shouted, "Target their heavy guns first. Then their mortar crew. Save the command post for last." John realized what she was doing, prioritizing targets like a field commander. And she was right. Every call she made was perfect. "You're running this fight," he said aloud, more to himself than her. "Someone has to," she replied coldly, squeezing off another shot. Her precision was terrifying. Anatomy and combat knowledge merged seamlessly. A shot to the shoulder disarmed one man. A round to the leg crippled another. When death was necessary, it was instant. She killed with mercy, not malice. Michael whispered to Robert, awe in his voice, "She's not destroying them. She's protecting us." Her control was relentless. Even as blood streaked her face and her uniform was torn and burned, she moved with purpose, steady as stone. Every order, every shot pulled the squad closer to survival. The enemy realized it too. Their fire shifted, focusing on her position. She was the threat now. "They've marked you," John shouted. "Good," she answered, reloading. "That means they're not marking you." She shifted positions like a shadow, never staying in one spot long enough to be pinned. Her movements were flawless. Exit routes, cover angles, sight lines, all second nature. She fought like she had never left the battlefield. The tide began to turn. Enemy lines faltered, their momentum broken. Their leaders silenced, their heavy weapons destroyed, their coordination unraveling. And at the center of it all was the medic they had once dismissed. Sophia didn't flinch, didn't falter. Her rifle barked, her orders snapped, her presence commanded. She had become what she swore she'd never be again, the commander by fire. The battle at Raven Hills ended not with triumph, but with silence. Smoke drifted across the torn valley, curling above blackened vehicles and scorched earth. The echo of gunfire slowly faded until only the groans of the wounded remained. What had once been a slaughter was now survival, and at the center of that fragile survival stood Sophia Ramos, rifle cooling in her hands, her breath steady despite the chaos around her. The squad stared at her in a way they never had before. Hours earlier, they had doubted her, mocked her small frame and quiet presence. Now, every one of them knew they were alive because of her. She had led them, shielded them, and fought with a skill none of them could comprehend. John approached cautiously, his uniform shredded, his voice rough. "We owe you our lives," he admitted. Sophia shook her head, sliding her rifle aside and lifting her medical kit once more. "Don't remember me as a sniper," she said softly. "Remember me as the one who kept your men breathing." The words cut through them. They wanted to argue, to tell her she was more than that, but something in her tone silenced them. She wasn't seeking recognition. She wasn't basking in the glory of her revealed past. She was already moving back to her patients, pressing bandages, stabilizing wounds, whispering reassurance to men who clung to consciousness. Michael crouched nearby, still processing what he'd seen. "Ma'am," he said gently, "that tattoo, that record, the kill shots, it was you. The stories, they were all you." Sophia glanced at him briefly. Her expression carried no pride, no denial. "That was another lifetime, one I buried for a reason." Robert, who had been among the harshest doubters, swallowed hard. "Then why did you come back? Why now?" She tied a tourniquet tightly and answered without looking up. Because sometimes the choice isn't between fighting and healing. Sometimes the only way to save lives is to pick up the rifle again. The squad exchanged quiet looks. Her words held a weight none of them could challenge. As reinforcements finally arrived, they found a squad battered but alive. Alive because of her. Reports spread quickly, traveling through channels like wildfire. A medic who had revealed herself as one of the deadliest snipers in living memory. Some called it impossible, others a miracle, but the men who had stood in Raven Hills knew the truth. Days later, at the forward base, officers tried to arrange a ceremony. A commendation. A medal. Sophia refused. The recognition belongs to the squad, she said. They fought, they bled, they survived. I just did my duty. But duty, they knew, was too small a word for what she had done. In the days that followed, Sophia returned to her old routines. She stacked supplies, logged reports, and tended to cuts and bruises with the same calm she always had. To new arrivals, she was just another medic in the infirmary. Quiet, unassuming, easily overlooked. Yet whispers followed her now. Recruits heard rumors. Veterans shared knowing glances. That woman, they would murmur. She saved an entire squad alone. She was cracking. Some even spoke of her in hushed reverence, calling her the ghost of Kandahar, the sniper whose legend had been dismissed as myth. But Sophia never acknowledged it. When asked directly, she always answered the same. What matters is that good soldiers made it home. One evening, John visited her in the infirmary. She was hunched over a desk, filling out medical logs with neat precision. He hesitated before speaking. I wanted to apologize, he said quietly, for the way we treated you. The things we said before Raven Hills. Sophia looked up, her expression calm. No apology needed. You treated me the way I wanted, as a medic, not as a weapon. But we should have seen, he pressed. We should have respected you sooner. She cut him off gently. Respect isn't given. It's earned. And I never wanted respect for what I was. Only for what I chose to be. John studied her carefully. And what do you choose now? She paused, setting down her pen. For a long moment, the silence stretched. Then she answered, I choose to heal. Every day, as long as I can. The simplicity of her words struck him harder than any battlefield order. In time, the men who had fought with her carried her lesson forward. They spoke of the medic who had revealed herself only when there was no other choice. They told recruits never to measure worth by size, gender, or silence. They taught that heroes often hid in plain sight, waiting for their moment. Sophia never listened to the whispers. She was too busy teaching new medics how to stay calm under fire, how to see patterns in chaos, how to protect life with every choice. She gave no speeches, sought no recognition. She simply worked. Months later, a young recruit asked her timidly, Ma'am, is it true what they say about you? That you were something more? Sophia smiled faintly, shaking her head. What matters is this. When chaos comes, be ready to protect the person beside you. That's all anyone needs to know. The recruit nodded, confused but inspired. Sophia returned to her duties, her legend trailing her like a shadow she would never claim. She had once been Kraken, the ghost, the sniper who rewrote records. But now she was what she always wanted to be, a healer, a guardian of life. And in the end, that was the greatest truth of her story. Strength is not measured by what you destroy. It is measured by what you choose to protect. Sophia had chosen, and though the world might never fully know, the men who survived Raven Hills would never forget.